Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Trains Seriously, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. It was the day of the third and final stage of the Chunin exams, and it seemed as if the entirety of Konoha had managed to get tickets. The stadium was filled to the brim with people from all over the elemental nations, many of who had come to see this generation's lineup of ninja. People from all stations in life, from daimyos to paupers, had come for what many were sure would be an exciting set of matches. Of course, it also helped that everyone finally got to see the newest and possibly one of the famous or infamous, depending on whom you asked, ninja. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was standing with the genin who had made it to the finals, in the center of the stadium where everyone could see them. He looked out at the crowd, and noticed that many of the people there were pointing to him as they spoke. The blonde shinobi was really beginning to rethink his position on whether or not being so well known was a good thing. When he had been younger, he would have cared for this kind of attention. Now though, now I just want some peace and quiet. He shook himself out of his thoughts and looked up at the cage booth, to see the 4 cages who were in attendance this year being seated with their bodyguards. Tsunade looked out over the crowd that this year had turned up. It was exactly what she had expected the turnout to be this year. The blonde Hokage had sent several personal letters to daimyos and anybody who she deemed as important to let them know that she had a special attraction for them at the Chunin exams this year. Hokage Dono. Tsunade turned around to see Mai Terumi greeting her with a smile, walking up to her with her 2 bodyguards on either side. Mizukage Dono, Tsunade greeted as the woman took a seat on the blonde's left. You know, this is the first Chunin exam I've actually been to as a Kage, Mai said as she looked down at the stadium, smiling as she saw Naruto. It's rather exciting. It is a rather interesting things to see from this perspective. The 2 women and their bodyguards turned to see Gaara and his 2 siblings walking up to them. I myself had the same feeling the first time I watched the Chunin exams as a Kage. Kazekage Dono, it's a pleasure to see you again, Tsunade greeted. How was the trip here? Gaara took off his Kage hat as he sat down on the left-hand side of Mai. It was fine, there was nothing very eventful that happened. Gaara turned to Mai. You are the new Mizukage, correct? He asked. I am, Mai said as she held out a hand, which Gaara accepted after a bit. I have heard many things about you from Naruto. Gaara raised an eyebrow at the suffix. He absently wondered if the Mizukage and Naruto had a relationship outside of just what he did for her during the Civil War. When Naruto had visited Suna, he had not mentioned being close to Kiri's new leader. Then again, Gaara had gotten the feeling that there were a lot of things his blonde friend had not mentioned back then. He has spoken of me? Gaara inquired. Mai smiled. Quite often, he told me about the similarities you 2 have with your past. While Gaara's siblings were slightly shocked, the red-haired Kazekage merely nodded in understanding. Looks like everyone else is already here. The 3 Kages turned their head to the voice, to find A, B and Yugito walking up to them. It looks like this year has gained quite the crowd. I don't think I've seen so many people at one exam. We have gotten a pretty big turnout this year, Tsunade agreed as the Raikage took the seat on her right. Though it may be that some of the people here are really just coming to see one of Konoha's more infamous shinobi. The Raikage laughed. Yes, that would not surprise me. People always seem to have something of a fandom for certain powerful figures in the shinobi world. And I must admit few seem to fill that requirement as well as Naruto-san does. Kankuro leaned into Temari's ear as he whispered, it seems that Naruto has really gotten around. He could not believe that the little pipsqueak who had only worn orange and screamed, Databeo, at the top of his lungs was so famous. Not only famous but apparently had some kind of intimate relationship with the Mizukage, who in his humble opinion was a complete babe. I know what you mean, Temari whispered back, he seems to know just about every Kage in the elementals. In fact, the only one he does not seem to be friends with is the Tsuchikage, and that's just because Iwa hates his father. Yugito-chan, Mai greeted the younger woman with a smile, are you looking forward to seeing the kids Naruto trained in action? Yugito looked at the red-haired woman and offered her own smile. Despite their rocky start, the 2 had ended up becoming friends. I am, Knowing Naruto-kun, they should be able to put up quite the fight. As the two women talked, the other ninja in the booth looked at them, most wondering how the two knew each other. None of the other cages or their bodyguards besides Tsunade knew that Mei and Yugito had both been staying at the Namikaze estate. Tsunade had made Naruto tell her his relationship with all of the girls he planned on marrying. The only female she did not know he was dating was Konan. Even then, Naruto had forced her to come to his estate before he told her anything, making sure that he told her in the most secure location he could think of so that the information was away from prying eyes. Most people would assume that the young man was being paranoid, but Tsunade knew that with all of the enemies he had in and outside of the village, paranoia was a good thing. Tsunade looked out at the crowd, specifically the daimyo's booth, in an effort to make sure that all the dignitaries who had come for the exams were present. Nodding to herself, the blonde Hokage stood up from her seat and walked to the ledge. She raised her hands in a grandiose gesture as she began her speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome all of you to the Chunin exams. A roar of approval came up from the crowd. Tsunade waited for it to s down before she continued. This year we have 9 contestants who have proven their worth, showing skills beyond their status. Today you will get to see these talented young ninja in action. Let the Chunin exams begin. You seem quite good at riling up the crowd, Hokage Dono, Mei complimented as Tsunade returned to her seat. Mei herself had never been all that good at speeches, even short ones, at least not to the masses. She could do it, of course. No cage worth their weight would be unable to give a good rallying speech, but it had never been her forte. Thanks, I guess. I honestly hate speeches, Tsunade said, getting a trickle of laughter to run through the cage booth. Before we begin this exam, there are a few new additions to this exam that I have added, Naruto said as the tournament started. First, we have the same rule as the one in the prelims. You listen to what I say, when I say it. Failure to do this will result in your immediate termination from the exams. Next, to make this exam a little more challenging and entertaining, I have placed several traps all throughout this arena. Many of the genin felt a sheen of sweat on their skin at seeing the sadistic leer on Naruto's face. There may be other surprises in store as well, problems that will arise and force you to think on your feet. I hope all of you have prepared well this past month. Now, Naruto began. Let's get to the first battle, Juka Karatake vs. Hanabi Hyuga. Everyone else please leave the arena floor and go up to the fighter's booth. As the other 7 genin left the arena floor, Hanabi and Juka stayed, moving to opposite sides of the arena. Hanabi got into a classic Jukan stance and flared her Byakugan, making the veins around her temples bulge. Juka got into the standard Suna Academy stance. Neither spoke yet as they waited for the signal to start. Are both fighters ready? Naruto asked and received a nod from both of them. Bringing up his hand, Naruto made a downwards S motion, then Hajime. The blonde shinobi jumped back as the battle started. You should give up, Hanabi stated in her emotionless voice, using her Hyuga face to maximize affect. You cannot win against me. Juka snorted, less talk, more action, little girl. Hanabi glared at her opponent and rushed towards Juka, hoping to get in close so she could use her Jukan taijutsu style. As the Hyuga heiress ran, Juka began going through hand seals, stopping on the Tori bird seal as he called out his jutsu. Futon, Daytopper, wind release, great breakthrough. A large gust of wind hit Hanabi, attempting to lift her into the air. The young pale-eyed genin channeled chakra into the bottom of her feet, sticking to the ground as she let the gust pass her. Hakusho Kaiten, heavenly divination rotation. A blue shield of chakra surrounded the Hyuga heiress, deflecting the K and making them bounce off her shield. However, that did not stop the notes from E. The blue energy sphere was blown back a ways, dissipating to reveal a slightly burnt Hanabi. Said girl shook the cobwebs out of her head and began another charge. Juka began going through more hand seals as he continuously backpedaled, only to trip a wire and force both Hanabi and he to dodge as several K and shuriken came flying at them. Before Hanabi could recover, Juka redid his hand seals and called out his jutsu. Futon, Repusho. Juka thrust out his hand with his palm facing out, a blast of wind shot from his hand and towards Hanabi. Being able to see the chakra, Hanabi dodged the wind attack and managed to close the distance. In that instant it was over as the Hyuga Kanoiki closed off Juka's Tenketsu points. Winner by knockout, Hanabi Hyuga. Naruto announced. The crowd cheered for Hanabi as she left the arena floor. Several medics came out with a stretcher, placing Juka on it before heading to the medical wing. Your genin is quite talented, Hokage-sama, Gaara said as the fight ended. Though she was quite reckless, Mei spoke up before Tsunade could say anything. Had it been a real battle and she charged a wind user with more powerful techniques, she would have s. Tsunade nodded. I have to agree with you, Mizukage Dono, and she has good techniques but needs to work on her strategy. Still, at least she's got spirit. The Raikage said, that's always a plus in my books. The other cages looked at him oddly for a moment, but nodded in agreement. Next match, Konohamaru Sarutobi and Renji Abari, could you two please come down to the arena floor? Naruto called out over the noise of the crowd. While Renji walked down the stairs, Konohamaru in his typical fashion jumped out of the fighter's box, using chakra to lessen the impact of his fall. Konohamaru moved to one side of the stadium while Renji took the other. Knowing he would need to use something other than AK for this battle, the young Sarutobi air unsealed his bow staff, twirling it around before getting into his stance. In response to the younger genin bringing out his weapon, Renji unsheathed his sword and got into a standard Kenjutsu stance. I hope you're ready for me to kick your Konohamaru shouted in an enthusiastic and wry voice. Renji's sweat dropped. This kid is like a miniature version of Ichigo with that attitude. Out loud he said, I think you're a little too why for your own good, kid. I'll enjoy taking you down a few pegs. Naruto looked at both fighters. Are you two ready? Receiving a nod he shouted, then, Hajime. The two shinobi rushed each other, clashing their respective weapons together in an attempt to hit the other. Renji came it with a diagonal S that was blocked by Konohamaru, who used his staff's double-sidedness to counterattack. The Konoha genin's staff managed to clip Renji's side, spinning with the blow. The Kiri shinobi spun around and aimed AS at Konohamaru's midsection. Konohamaru parried the blow and began to spin his staff in increasingly complex maneuvers. Renji jumped back so as not to get hit. Timing his attack, Renji thrust his blade in the complex weaving of the bow staff, stopping it in its tracks. Renji pushed against the staff and tried to skewer Konohamaru, who leaned back and twisted his body out of the way, spinning his staff at the same time to knock Renji's sword off course and give the young Sarutobi an opening. Planting his staff in the ground, Konohamaru used it to increase the force of his kick as he sa foot into Renji's face. Renji went flying back but managed to flip in mid-air and land on his feet. Kaiten, Gokyaku no Jutsu. The redhead looked up and cursed as a giant fireball came barreling towards him. Renji put on a burst of speed as he jumped out of the way. Seeing Renji dodge, Konohamaru went through more hand seals and s them into the ground. Doton, Doryuden. Earth release, Earth Dragon Missile. A dragon head rose out of the ground and began to fire powerful mudballs at Renji. Well, this is turning out to be quite the fight. Said as he watched the two genin enter a close combat battle again. I have to admit to being impressed. They are getting pretty good, Mei said as she studied the battle, though they could think more tactically. Still, I think they might both be Chunin material, but we'll have to see more before deciding that, Tsunade said. Their combat level is definitely Chunin though. Yugito tilted her head. They have both been trained very well. Most Chunin don't actually learn all it means to be a Chunin until after they earn the rank anyway. The kitten is right, yo. That means they gotta gain experience to know. B agreed as a tick mark formed on Yugito's head. Damn it, B, shut up with your rapping. Naruto watched as the two genin went at it. Their battle was impressive for genin. While it would not compare with, say, his battles with Akatsuki or Yagura, they were displaying quite a bit of skill. Naruto was glad he had taken to training Konohamaru for the month hiatus. Had he not received the blonde's harsh training, there would be no way the younger genin would be able to keep up with Renji. As it was, the two were evenly matched. Renji was faster but Konohamaru could use both sides of his weapon, negating Renji's advantage. Renji came at Konohamaru with AS. Leaning back, Konohamaru let the blow pass over him and attached an E-tag to the flat side the Kiri genin's blade. He jumped away just as the tag E. Konohamaru was breathing heavily as he waited for the smoke to clear. When it did, he saw that Renji was on the ground, his sword several feet away. Konohamaru gave Renji no time to recover as he made a single cage bushin and held out his hand. The clone came up and began to help Konohamaru with the manipulation for his jutsu. Soon enough, a familiar spinning ball of chakra formed in the palm of the young genin's hand. Naruto taught him the Rasengan. Tsunade shouted as she stood up from her seat. As she stared at the infamous ball of chakra, she could feel several different emotions running through her. The first was pride at the fact that Naruto could teach someone an A-rank technique within a month, as well as the fact that Konohamaru was able to learn such a powerful jutsu. And anger at the fact that Naruto taught such a powerful technique to a genin. She would be having a word with the blonde when this was over. I suspected Naruto would do something like this, Mei said as soon as sat back down. I have to admit I am impressed that a genin was able to learn such a powerful technique within a month. It does speak well of the boy's skills, the Raikage said, as well as that of the teacher. However, the fact that he is using such a technique when he doesn't need it also shows he needs more restraint, Yugito interrupted. Right now the boy is just showing off. The others in the booth nodded in agreement. Konohamaru ran right at the red-haired Kiri Shinobi, the Rasengan right into Renji's stomach. The redhead was thrown back from the power of the technique and hit the ground. When Renji did not get back up, Naruto nodded to himself as he announced the winner. Winner by knockout is Konohamaru Sarutobi. All right. Yes. Konohamaru jumped up and down in the air as the crowd cheered for him. Meanwhile, Renji was placed on a stretcher and taken to the medical wing. These matches are quite entertaining, the Raikage said as the others turned to him. Watching all of these battles makes me wish I was down there fighting right now. It was quite impressive, though Konohamaru needs to learn when to use such powerful techniques, Tsunade said. Still, they both showed a decent amount of skill. Your ninja is quite impressive with a sword, the busty blonde turned to Mei. Thank you Hokage Dono, Mei said in Grodd. He is one of the people I am hoping will revive the Kiri no Shinobugatana Nananan Shu. Well, he is pretty talented, Yugito said. With some more time, training and experience, that goal is quite possible. Who is his trainer? Reiga Kurasuki, Mei answered, surprising the other three cages and their bodyguards. I thought Reiga became a missing ninja several years ago. Tsunade questioned the busty redhead. He did, Mei answered. Naruto fought him about a year ago. Rather than kill him, he brought Reiga to me. I had offered the man a position in the village again. He accepted on a few conditions and had a hand in training the people I am trying to make into the new swordsmen. Mei shivered a bit when she had mentioned his conditions. Aside from keeping Ranmaru with him at all times, the man had demanded that he be allowed to give his enemies funerals. She had been tempted to just kill him after that, but with her village in desperate need of powerful shinobi, she had not been able to afford to do that. The others noticed her shiver but ignored it as they went back to the battles, though a few of the people there continued to wonder how close she was to Naruto to use a nickname like that. Will Raiden and Ichigo Kurosaki come down? Naruto called out the next names to battle. Ichigo appeared a little ways away, his sword out at the ready. Raiden walked out of the entrance, moving to the opposite side of the orange-haired genin. Ichigo grinned as he got into a wide two-handed stance, his sword in front of him running parallel to the ground. Raiden in turn got into a taijutsu stance, presenting his profile view with his left foot in front and his right behind him, ready to push the balls of his feet. I hope you're ready to lose, Ichigo replied in his typical short tone, a smirk on his face. I believe you should wait until after the battle is finished to gloat, Raiden replied, lest you end up eating your words. Are both fighters ready? Naruto asked. He received a nod from Raiden. You bet I am, Ichigo said as he grinned. Let's do this. Naruto nodded, then Hajime. Ichigo disappeared in a burst of speed, reappearing right next to Raiden swinging his sword. Raiden ducked under the sword and came up after it passed over his head, aiming a punch at Ichigo who jumped back. Raiden went through several hand seals, his hands on the ground he called out his jutsu. Raiten, Ikazushi Hakai. A large bolt of lightning tore through the landscape, heading towards Ichigo who jumped into the air to avoid it. Raiden jumped in the air to meet him, only for Ichigo to burst into water. A large blue and ethereal-looking wave came barreling up from the ground. Raiden used a Karawimi to escape the attack. Appearing near a tree on the other side of the arena, he tried to think up a plan but had no time as a sizzling noise reached his ear. During his head he cursed to find several E-tags. He jumped out of the tree just as it As he landed on the ground, Ichigo appeared right in front of him. Raiden ducked under the swing sent his way, getting down on his hands and pushing out with a kick. Ichigo used the flat end of his blade to block, skidding back from the force. He looked up to see Raiden going through more hand signs. Raiten, Reikyu. A ball of lightning the size of a cannonball shot out of Raiden's mouth. In return, Ichigo channeled some chakra into his sword. As soon as the lightning ball came close enough to him, the orange-haired shinobi s it in half. A blade of blue chakra was launched from the end of Ichigo's sword and flew towards Raiden. The Kumo shinobi was forced to jump out of the way, however Ichigo appeared right next to him and the young man was not fast enough to dodge the kick to his face. Raiden flew back and into the air from the kick, flipping around so he landed on his feet. He grabbed his B-nose and set it back in place with a crunch, looking up to see that Ichigo was gone. He looked around only for instincts to kick in and make him roll to the left. A good thing he had too, as soon as he did a large blue blade on Chakra S into the spot he had been standing on, destroying the area and leaving a crater. The young man stared at the spot he had previously been. As Raiden crumbled to the ground, Naruto announced the winner. Winner by knockout is Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo raised his hand as the crowd cheered, walking back into the entrance to the fighter's booth. Meanwhile, a medic team had placed Raiden on a stretcher, standing up to take him to the medical ward. I have to admit that boy is impressive to defeat Raiden, A said as the fight ended. He is one of my better genin. Well, Ichigo has a lot of raw power to throw around, Mei replied. To be honest, were it not for that I doubt he would have won. The boy lacks finesse. That reminds me of how Naruto used to be, Tsunade said, remembering how the blonde had been before his training trip. Mei looked over at the busty blonde woman with a smirk. Oh. Do tell. Tsunade gave her own smirk as she began to tell stories of how the young blonde used to be before his training, much to the amusement of the others in the box. Naruto felt a shiver run down his spine. I get the feeling someone's talking about me and it's not in a good way. He shook his head of the thought before focusing on the task at hand. Will Udon and Otame Shinji please come to the arena floor? Naruto called out, resisting the urge to sigh. At first, being a proctor actually sounded kind of fun, but now it was just boring. All I'm doing is saying the same thing over again, the blonde teen thought as he watched Udon and Otame come down and stand on opposite sides of the arena. Are both fighters ready? Naruto asked as he looked at the two. He received a nod from each and decided to get this started, then Hajime. The two genin instantly jumped away from each other, Udon going through hand signs while Otame threw several shuriken enhanced with his wind chakra. As the K came in, Udon spread his hands in front of him in what looked like a defensive gesture. Raiten, Maganekiku Gyakuten, lightning release, magnetic reversal. The air around Udon became saturated with static electricity. It was unnoticeable to all except those with Dujutsu and those who could sense lightning chakra. When the K came into the field, they stopped instantaneously, turned around and headed right back to a surprised Otame. Setsuna Genin was able to only just get out of the way, though it was not without injury as the two S that now ran across his left arm indicated. It looks like you've got a Raiten user, said as he looked at the boy with the bullseye glasses. And that technique, simple but extremely effective. I take it that Naruto-san has been teaching him as well. Yes, Tsunade said as she looked over at the Raikage. How did you know? The Raikage laughed. It's quite simply really, he used that same jutsu on me during our first spar. Udon did not give Otame any time to react to the unexpected attack from his own weapons. Charging straight at the Suna Genin, Udon pulled several K from his pouch and tossed them at Otame. The older Genin made to dodge, jumping up and to the left. In response, Udon manipulated his fingers, which had chakra strings attaching them to the K, and changed the direction back towards Otame. Futen, Kazedorite, wind release, wind cutter. A fierce wind with several large wind blades S into Udon, at least it S into where Udon was as the Genin soon disappeared in a puff of smoke, a log replacing where he had been. Otame jumped out from the tree he had been hiding in, looking around to see if he could spot Udon. Otame pushed himself up onto his feet as he turned to face Udon, going through several hand seals. Futen, Repusho. A gust of wind hit Udon before he could react, sending him flying towards a tree. He was able to flip himself around and land on the trunk, however he froze as a seal appeared under him, paralyzing him for several precious seconds. Seconds which Otame used to chuck several shuriken at the now frozen Konoha Genin. Thankfully the seal disrupted in time for Udon to do a quick karawimi. Appearing on a tree several meters away. Reaching into his K pouch, Udon pulled out several shuriken and flung them at Otame. Setsuna Genin turned around just in time to see them and began going through several hand seals. Futon, Daytopper. A gust of wind knocked the shuriken off course, but the distraction was all Udon needed to get close. Sending punch to Otame's C, it was swatted away by the Genin's other hand but had served its purpose. When Udon jumped away, Otame looked down and felt his eyes widen as he saw the E tag on his shirt, the slight sizzle showing the tag was active. The sizzle ended and the tag E, however Otame was able to his shirt off in time, revealing his white undershirt. Frowning, Udon threw several K at him. Otame saw this and used a Kawirimi, appearing behind a tree. He sighed as he tried to come up with a plan. Looking out from behind the tree, he frowned when he saw Udon was no longer there. Naruto saw Udon come out from behind a tree, dragging an unconscious Otame. Otame is unable to continue the battle, therefore the winner is Udon. Naruto announced. As Udon made his way to the stand and Otame was taken out by a medical team, Naruto called the next match. Will Rukia Kuchiki and Onui Tetano please come down to the arena floor? The two genin walked down to the floor and stood on opposite sides of each other. Rukia had a hand on the hilt of her blade, but had not unsheathed it as she took a Batujutsu stance. Onui meanwhile had taken out two serrated K, with small traces of lightning coming out of the blades. Are both fighters ready? Asked Naruto, receiving a sharp nod from both of them, then, Hajime. Once the word Hajime left Naruto's mouth, Rukia disappeared in a burst of speed. Reappearing right in front of Onui, Rukia's sword came out and attempted to bisect the genin. However, Onui had been able to see her movement and blocked the attack with his K. Rukia was forced to jump back as a lightning coursed from Onui's blades. Rukia shook her head to clear it after receiving the shock, however Onui was not going to let her get any rest as he came after her. Rukia was forced to duck, dodge and weave her way around the 2K, knowing that she would be in serious trouble if she got hit by those. Knowing that she could not use her sword in this instance, Rukia jumped back and went through a series of one-handed seals. Sutan, Teppadama. Several cannon-sized globs of water shot from the Kirikanoiki's mouth, forcing Onui to jump back and dodge as the water balls into the ground. Doing so left the young man open to attack. Appearing in front of the boy, Rukia managed to kick the K out of the Kumo genin's hands. Unfortunately for her, Onui did not need K to channel lightning chakra. Onui began to spin around, using his and Rukia's combined weight to fling her into the air. He began to go through several hand seals. Raiten, Bakufu. Lightning release, blast. A bolt of lightning shot out of Onui's extended hand. The lightning hit the still airborne Rukia, sending electricity coursing through the Kiri genin's body. Only for said body to turn into water. Ninpu, Kirigakure no Jutsu. Ninja art, hidden mist jutsu. A thick mist began to spread out around the arena. Since there was not a very large water source nearby, it was only enough to hamper visibility rather than render everything invisible. Onui went on guard as he peered through the mist. It was not enough that he could not see through it, however it would certainly affect his vision and skew it enough that it could prove costly. That was when his instincts started screaming at him to move. He followed them just as Rukia dropped from the sky, at where he had been. Thus began the game of cat and mouse as Rukia would appear and try to take Onui out, and then disappear 1 second later. Worse, because the genin's vision was skewed by the mist, he could not accurately predict how close Rukia actually was. It often looked like she was farther away than she really was. This is turning out to be quite the exciting battle, the Reikage said as he tried to peer into the mist. Your genin is good. To be able to fight so well despite being handicapped by facing against someone with an opposing affinity. Thank you Reikage Dono, Mei replied. To be honest, she is one of my better strategists among the genin. It was why I placed her on this team. She paused in thought for a moment, that and she's the only one her other two teammates are actually afraid of among the genin. So she keeps them in line, Yugito said with a smirk. Mei grinned. Of course, you know how men are. The women in the booth smirked at that comment, all of them knowing of the trouble men cause and how much of a handful they can be. Onui dodged another attack from Rukia as he tried to come up with a plan. He knew of a jutsu he could use, but it required more chakra than he had. As he dodged that came at him from the right, he reached his hand into his pouch and pulled out 2 soldier pills. This would leave him exhausted afterwards, but he felt it would be his best chance to win. Swallowing them, he felt a burst of chakra and began going through several hand seals. Raiten, Reiku Nami. Lightning release, Lightning wave. Lightning burst from Otame's body as he spread his arms wide, sending what looked like a wave of lightning in all directions. There was a shout of pain from somewhere within the mist as it began to clear. Otame dropped onto his knees with his breathing heavy. When the mist cleared, it showed Rukia on her knees with electricity sparking off of her, though she was still conscious. Only for his eyes to widen in shock as Rukia turned into a puddle of water. Surrender, Rukia commanded. Onui sighed as he realized he had no chakra left to get out of this. I surrender. That girl is quite impressive, Tsunade said. She has excellent strategies. Thank you, I taught her about tactical combat myself, Mei replied with pride in her voice. I have to admit your genin has amazing talent, said. While Onui was not his most powerful shinobi, he was decent, and the Kiri genin had a disadvantage in element. Thank you Reikage Dono, Mei replied. Winner by forfeit is Rukia Kuchiki. Naruto shouted out to the crowd. As the crowd cheered, the two genin left. Naruto sighed as the first half of the Chunin exam finals was over. He looked up at the stadium as he began to speak again. The first half of the Chunin exams are now over. We will be having a short 15-minute break for all guests to grab a bite and stretch their legs before moving on to the second round. As the spectators began to rise from their seats, Naruto turned his attention to the cage booth. Grinning, he disappeared in a gentle breeze. Tsunade along with the other cages stood up in their chairs to stretch legs a bit, letting themselves get some of the feeling back. Despite being forced to sit at a chair all day due to their jobs, none of them actually got used to it, and the chairs they were in now were less comfortable than their cage chairs. Those were some exciting matches, the Reikage said with a grin. I can't wait to see the rest. Tsunade chuckled. Yes, they were pretty good. We'll have to discuss who among them deserves to be Chunin since there are many potential candidates. There are a few who can make it to Chunin, Mei agreed, but I think it would be wise for us to wait until we see what else they are capable of, especially since the battles will get harder the more they fight, forcing them to think with a level head. You're pretty smart, yo. A pretty little thing like you knows how things go. Kiribi said in his rap. This time he was not just smacked by Yugito, but also by Mei, who was looking at B with a creepy smile that spoke of him feeling immense pain if he said the wrong thing. B, stop rapping. Yugito growled. Especially about me, in that context, do so again and I'll melt you, Mei replied in that sweet and creepy voice. The men around her shivered at the tone, though Al was glad that for once it was not directed at him. B actually paled at the threat. Having Yugito kick him was fine, he would usually be up right after since they only hurt when she was really pissed. But having a cage say she was going to melt you, and knowing that she actually had the capability to do it with her Yoten Jutsu was an entirely different kettle of fish. Thankfully, before he could say anything that would likely get him melted, a voice spoke up behind them. Now that isn't nice, Mei-chan. Everyone turned to see Naruto looking at them with a grin. I don't even think he can help his rapping. Though, Naruto looked at B and the man felt a small shiver run through him. I would suggest that you not make any crude comments about her. Narukoi-kun. Yugito and Mei greeted the blonde as they walked up to him. Yo big bro, what's going on with those three, do you know? KB asked as he tried to turn away from the sight of the three, yet somehow found himself staring. A just shook his head, unable to come up with an answer as he too stared at the trio. It is too bad Jiraiya-sama is not here. I'm sure this would be great material to help him write his books. It was several minutes later when Naruto was forced to go back down to the arena floor, much to the girls' protest. However, he promised to make it up to them later, giving them a knowing look before leaving for the arena again. Sitting at her desk in the Hokage Tower, Tsunade was finishing up her report on the Chunin exams and the paperwork for Udon's promotion. She looked up at the clock and sighed as she realized how late it was. And I still have to do the regular paperwork after this, Tsunade groaned. What she wouldn't give for a cup or bottle of sake, or 10. Unfortunately, Shizune had come in once again and gotten rid of her secret stash, again. Sighing in annoyance, she worked harder to finish the paperwork so she could go home and get a drink. As she continued working, a knock sounded at her door. Come in, she called without looking up. The door opened and 3 people walked in and stood in front of her desk. Tsunade-sama, a voice she recognized instantly sounded. Tsunade's eye twitched as she looked up to see Danzo Shimura, Homura and Koharu, 3 people she did not want to see. What do you 3 want? Tsunade asked without bothering to do any of the customary greetings. In case you haven't noticed, I have a lot of work to do. The three elders frowned at her disrespectful voice, but knowing what they came here for decided to let it go. Danzo stepped forward to speak. We are merely here as concerned citizens, Tsunade-sama. Oh, Tsunade asked, stopping her work as she looked at the three with a raised eyebrow. And what is there that could concern you three? Homura coughed into his hand as he spoke. We have been hearing many rumors about this Akatsuki that Jiraiya-sama has been spying on. We are concerned about the effects this could have on Konoha, especially when they come after Namikaze-san. Tsunade narrowed her eyes as she figured where this was going. She knew that the three would not leave their issue with Naruto alone. The only question was, what were they planning? And why would you be concerned about Namikaze-san? You do know that he is an S-rank ninja, yes? One whom I am sure may even be more powerful than me. We know very well how powerful Namikaze-san is, Koharu retorted. However, we feel it would be beneficial to give him some added protection. After all, with all the enemies he has now, leaving him without adequate protection would be foolhardy. So that's what they want, Tsunade thought as she now understood what they were after. They wanted to have one of Danzo's men to keep an eye on Naruto, someone who could find some kind of weakness they could eat to bend him to their will. To be honest, she was surprised they were being so transparent. Normally she would have to look under what they were saying to find out what they really wanted. Though perhaps that could be accredited to the fact that they were getting desperate. Naruto had outplayed them in every game they had so far. They knew they were running out of options. And you think you have someone who is strong enough to protect Naruto? Tsunade asked incredulously, stalling for time. I don't know of any shinobi besides myself and Jiraiya who are able to fight S-rank ninja in combat, unless there is something you three are not telling me. To their credit, the three did not show any outward reaction to her threat. I can have one of my best security personnel accompany him on missions, Danzo said. They knew he had to be careful with this. Tsunade knew that Danzo's route operation was not disbanded as it was supposed to be. Tsunade's lips became a thin line as she listened to the man. She knew what his security personnel really was. The blonde knew he was actually referring to his supposed disbanded route Anbu division. However, she also knew she could not prove it. Danzo was easily the most paranoid man she had ever met. He had covered his tracks so well that not even Jiraiya's spy network had been able to get more than a small glimmer of information. It was part of the reason neither she nor Sarutobi before her were ever able to try Danzo for treason. As she was thinking of what to do with their request, another thought came to her. Danzo wanted one of his route members to keep an eye on Naruto. However, it could easily be used to get the reversed effect. If she could have Naruto get close to one of his men, they would be able to spy and possibly locate Danzo's base of operations. At the very least, they could gain some useful information. From what Jiraiya had told her, Naruto was an expert in information gathering, stealth and espionage. Aside from that, the young man also had the uncanny ability to make friends out of people, even enemies, something that could and had proven useful on many occasions. That decided Tsunade put on her poker face as she spoke. I suppose what you say has some merit. Very well, I will allow one of Danzo's personal security guards onto a team with Naruto. Though he may not always be teamed up with him, he will go on any missions of importance. While Homura and Koharu were nodding their heads in a pleased fashion, Danzo narrowed his eyes at the woman. She had relented far easier than he had expected. The old warhawk was not naive enough to believe that Tsunade would just let one of his men on Naruto's squad just like that. While Tsunade could not prove it, Danzo knew that she knew of his route Anbu. This led him to wonder what she was planning. He shook the thought off. Even if she had some kind plan, it won't matter in the end. He would still get what he wants. I'm glad to see we came to an agreement, Hokage-sama, Danzo said. I will have my chosen man here tomorrow morning. Tsunade nodded. Very well. As the three elders left her room, Tsunade turned her chair to look out at the village. She was taking a risk by allowing one of Danzo's men to get close to Naruto, someone who could potentially harm or even the Uzumaki Namikaze heir. However, she had faith in the blonde's abilities to get through most situations, and she knew that Danzo would not be bold enough to try that. Not yet, at least. She could only hope that this would work out in the end. Turning back to her desk, Tsunade picked up the first sheet on the stack of paperwork. XL. You called Danzo-sama. Danzo looked at the figure kneeling before him, a young man who was wearing a bird mask that could not be any older than 17. Yet he was also one of Danzo's most valuable assets, having been trained at an early age when the Warhawk was unable to get Naruto into his root program. I have a new mission for you, Danzo said without preamble. You are to watch Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Find out everything you can about him, strengths, weaknesses and any people he is close to. Do you understand your mission? Hi Danzo-sama, the young boy spoke in an emotionless tone. Good, take off your mask, you will not need it for this mission, Danzo ordered. The young man took off his mask revealing coal-black eyes, black hair and pale skin. Still kneeling, the youth set the mask on the floor, keeping his head bowed down for his leader. Danzo gave a small smile to himself. This boy would complete his mission, the bandaged man had made sure of that. For this mission your name will be Sai X. Naruto looked into his bowl of steaming ramen with a sigh. Twirling the noodles on his chopsticks, he brought it to his mouth and began eating. It had only been a day since Mei and Yugito left and he was already missing the two women. He had gotten used to waking up with the two next to him and spending the time he was not using to train himself or others with them. Shaking his head, he finished eating his ramen, drinking the broth straight from the bowl before unsealing his frog wallet and taking out the necessary money where he put it on the table. Thanks for the food, Chuki-san. Naruto called out to the ramen chef who was in the back. Give my regards to Ayami Ne-chan when she gets here. Alright. See you later, Naruto. Chuki called as his head popped out from the back. Naruto tossed a wave over his shoulder as he lifted the flaps on the restaurant and left. The blonde shinobi waved to several people as he walked by, recognizing them as the ones who respected him for his burden. As he made his way home, Naruto spotted Chuji, Shikamaru and Ino walking out of a shinobi store. Changing direction, the blonde made his way over to them. Hey guys, Naruto greeted as he stopped next to them. What's up, Naruto? Chuji asked as he hefted his new halberd on his shoulder. Not much, Naruto replied. Now that the Chunin exams are over, things have gotten pretty quiet. Yeah, it's also been a lot less troublesome now, Shikamaru said. Personally, he was glad those troublesome exams were over with. Now he could get back to his cloud watching. Everything is always troublesome for you, Shikamaru, Ino scolded him. Nah, just anything that actually requires me to work, the lazy Jonin replied. Ino scowled before turning her attention to Naruto. So what's this I've been hearing about you spending time with two foreign women? Being a gossip queen, Ino was quite curious to learn more about this. It had been the talk of nearly every girl in Konoha, first claiming that Naruto had been seen with a red-haired woman with rumors of it being the new Mizukage. Then there was the rumor of him spending time with a blonde woman, Akumo Kanoiki at that, which then turned into him spending time with the two of them. Ino had been able to confirm those rumors when she had seen Naruto with the two women in question on his arm during the breaks in the Chunin exams, but wanted more information. She also would not deny to being jealous. Ino had tried multiple times to flirt with Naruto. After the young blonde's first council meeting as a clan head, her father Inoiki had let slip that Naruto had been placed under the CRA and would have to take multiple wives. As clan heir, it was necessary that Ino know about clan laws, so she knew about this almost as soon as Naruto's heritage had been revealed, but having her dad confirm it made her that much more determined to make the blonde shinobi hers. It hadn't worked out the way she had wanted. Naruto, while not being rude, had either turned down or redirected any attempts at her asking him for a date or any time she had tried to flirt with him. It had been a vexing experience for the blonde Kanoiki, who was used to using her beauty on men in the village to get what she wanted. She had eventually stopped trying to get him and instead just focused on being his friend, though that did not mean that she did not feel jealousy towards those who had. Naruto blinked at the question before shrugging. He had known the moment those two appeared on his doorstep that word would get out, and with Ino being such a gossip, her need to know would be insatiable. The red-haired woman was Mei Terumi, the Godai Mizukage. And the blonde was Yugito ni, Akumo Kanoiki and the Jinchuriki for the Nibi no Nekomata. The three with him gaped at him when they heard of the blonde's status. They knew that Naruto was a Jinchuriki, and in all honesty didn't care, but hearing about another one was always a surprise. They also happen to be two of the 4 women I plan on marrying, Naruto said. There was no way to hide that now that the 3 had been seen together. Not that there was much of a point anyway. Yugito was already a target for Akatsuki, so the information about her being his fiancée would not really mean much. And since she lived in Kumo, Danzo and his cohorts would be unable to make a move on her. And Mei was a Kage, meaning not only was she an S-rank ninja, but she also commanded several thousand other ninja. Akatsuki and Danzo would have to stupid to attempt trying to get her as a hostage. So you mean that you're marrying them? Ino asked in surprise. Hunches were all well and good, but hearing the rumors straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, was another thing entirely. Didn't I just say that? Naruto asked rhetorically. Seriously, why do some women like to repeat what he already said? Maybe Shikamaru had a point, some women were troublesome. Well, it's just surprising is all, Ino said in her defense. I suppose that's true, Naruto said. He had refused to give any information about who he planned on marrying, feeling that it was not only nobody's business but his and the women he was marrying. However, I've known them for several years now. One of them is a Kage and the other, Jinchuriki like yourself, Shikamaru muttered. Sounds like some kind of troublesome political arrangement. Naruto laughed at him. I suppose it would. To be honest, I never thought about it like that. I met both of them during my days traveling the elemental nations. He smiled a bit as his eyes glazed over in remembrance. Both of them had something that I not only love, but was unique and distinctive to just them, aside from the fact that they have unrivaled beauty even among other Kunoichi. I'm not one to believe in destiny or fate or any of that bull-s, but I really do have to thank Kami for bringing me to them. The three ninja looked at the blonde who looked like one of those love-struck kids in some kind of drama show that Shikamaru's mom loved to watch. Yoshino Nara sneezed as she watched her favorite soap opera. Someone's talking about me, she mumbled as she grabbed a tissue. If it's anything bad, they are going to get a beating from my frying pan. Ino once again felt jealousy well up inside of her. It was clear as day that Naruto was utterly devoted to those two. When she had been chasing after Sasuke, and to a lesser extent and much more recently, Naruto, she had hoped to see that look aimed at her. She sighed in disappointment. Naruto shrugged as he snapped himself out of his trance-like state. Though it will definitely help village relations with both Kumo and Kiri, still it's really only convenient and not something that matters. It still sounds troublesome, Shikamaru said. Naruto just rolled his eyes at the lazy Nara. The four continued talking for a while, switching the subject to a topic that did not involve the blonde's personal life when Naruto sensed movement behind him. Spinning around, he unsealed Susanoo and sent a wind blade into two black tigers. Both of them fell apart as the blade passed through them, and Naruto frowned when a smell hit his nose. Those things are made of ink. Looking around, Naruto spotted a figure on one of the roofs several meters away. Channeling chakra into his eyes, Naruto was able to get a good look at the figure. It was a boy around his age with short ink black hair, black eyes and very pale skin. He had a small backpack on him that Naruto assumed held the equipment he used to make those two ink beasts. He wore a short black jacket and also carried a tonto on his back under the pack. The rest of his outfit consisted of a high-collared shirt that exposed his midriff, black pants, shinobi sandals and gloves with his index finger and thumb exposed. In many ways the teen bore a strong physical resemblance to Sasuke Uchiha, however there was one major difference. Sasuke Uchiha always held a look of absolute hatred and utter loathing for his brother and people he believed were weak, as well as a desire for power and revenge. This boy's eyes held nothing, they had no emotion whatsoever. Naruto instantly knew that this boy worked for Danzo, who had a habit of turning his men into emotionless puppets. He was most likely sent here to test me, but why would he do it so openly? More important, what does Danzo gain by this? It's well known that I'm considered an S-rank ninja on par with a Kage, so he knows that anyone less than another S-class ninja could never really challenge me. Naruto shook his head. I don't have enough information on the man to make an accurate estimation of anything. I'll deal with this first and see what I can find out later. Naruto watched as the pale-skinned youth took a brush and began to write on the scroll that was in his lap. A few seconds later, more of those ink tigers hot out. Shikamaru. Naruto shouted at the lazy Jonin, who just sighed and muttered a quick troublesome before going through several hand seals. Ninpu, Kage Nui no Jutsu. Ninja art, shadow sewing jutsu. The Nara airs shadow shot up from the ground, eyed the ink tigers and allowing Naruto to continue moving. Only for Chuji to enlarge his arm and s them apart with his halberd. Nodding in thanks, Naruto continued, putting on a burst of speed that made him all but invisible. 6 more ink beasts came towards the blur that represented Naruto. With Susanoo still in hand, Naruto made several motions as he passed them. He did not stop as the ink beasts burst back to their original state, reappearing in front of the pale-skinned youth. Naruto aimed for his head. The young teen acted fast, whipping out his tonto and blocking Naruto's S. However, he had not expected the strength behind the blonde's attack, and the ground under him cracked as he was pushed onto a knee. What strength? Thought Sai as he struggled to keep from being skewered. You know it's not very nice to attack a fellow leaf shinobi, Naruto said in his emotionless voice. Do so again and I will make sure you regret such a choice. My apologize, the black-haired teen said as he gave Naruto a smile that was so fake the blonde wanted to throw up. I was merely testing your skills as a shinobi, and I have to say with how terrible you are you must not have any balls. Naruto blinked, then blinked again as what the pale-skinned youth said. When it did, Naruto looked at the young man with a hard look, and for the first time in his life Sai felt a small chill run down his spine. Before the black-haired teen could do anything, Naruto sending him flying back and into a wall where a large human-shaped crater formed under him. Sai pulled himself out of the way crater and shook his head to clear it of the ringing. Looking up, he saw Naruto staring at him from the roof where he had been previously. Blinking, he looked again and saw Naruto had disappeared. Sai frowned before sushioning to go report to Danzo. Naruto appeared within his home a few minutes after the confrontation. Walking down the stairs, Naruto entered his study. He began to open several drawers, searching for something his dad had been working on before the Kyuubi attack. Naruto frowned as he continued his search, wondering why he could not find it. Expanding his search, Naruto made several clones to go look through the library. Sitting down in his chair, Naruto took out some parchment, high-quality ink and a brush. While he waited for his clones, Naruto began to write out some of the ideas he had on new seals, or modifications of previously existing seals. Hey boss. Naruto turned around in his seat just in time to catch a scroll that one of his kage bushins tossed to him. Turning the scroll over, the blonde saw that it was what he was looking for. Thanks. Dispel yourself to alert the others. The clone nodded and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Turning back around, Naruto his thumb and spread some B across the seal. There was a slight hiss as his skin healed up and the seal disappeared in a puff of smoke. Unrolling the scroll, Naruto smiled as he saw the almost completed work. Setting it down, Naruto began to work. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.